Hello, my maker friends. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I'm going to take you on a special behind the scenes look at how I create a digital vector file from the drawings on my iPad, turning them into an SVG on my computer, and then giving you a look at how I set up my zipped files for Etsy listings. So while I wait for my computer to turn on, I'm just going to let you guys know that I do have the air conditioning on in the shed as well as this fan for circulation. It's very warm outside, and even though we have air conditioning, sometimes it's just not enough. So if you hear a fan during this video, that's what that is. So we're going to start off first by looking at my iPad. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do with this drawing, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the circle because it's just an extra layer I don't want to have to deal with. I'm going to separate out my layers. So I'm going to turn off these layers, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Share PNG and Saved files. I'm gonna call this, I don't know. Naming things is just as hard as picking fonts, am I right? Let's see, let's just do black, greenery. Then I'm going to turn off these, and then I'm gonna turn these back on. Get rid of this layer because I don't need it. I'm gonna change these layers to black just so they pick up better. And I'm gonna go ahead and move this guy a little over just so when it vectors, you can see them better. Okay, so now I'm gonna do the same thing, share PNG, save to files under my doodles album, and we're gonna just call these red, purple, roses, and export. And then what I'm gonna do, because I forgot to do this, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna export the whole image just so I've got a basis of sorts to refer back to. I don't know, roses, image, I don't know. I have no idea. Okay, now that I drew this pretty floral, go ahead and go that way to the computer so you can see the vectoring process. Okay, let's go. Now over on the computer, the first thing we're going to do is go to iCloud and download the files that synced from my iPad to my cloud on my computer. We're going to download those files to the download folder and then drag and drop them to folder in my computer. And then we're going to right click and open in Inkscape, where we're going to turn our file into a vector. I'm going to go to Path, Trace Bitmap, Apply, and then I'm going to take my vector and I'm going to post it right here. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Path, trace bitmap, apply, paste this here, and then I'm going to take my last image, which for some reason is cattywampus, and I'm going to put it here. And this is the basis, so we know what it's supposed to look like. So I'm going to take these roses, break them apart, Control K, and now we have two separate vectored pieces. Same with this. We're going to go path, break apart, and now we have separate pieces. So now I want to change my colors so they're matchy-matchy. So this one, pen, drag and drop on this color, and drag and drop on this color. I'm gonna copy and paste these And I'm going to path break apart, path break apart. And then this time, I'm going to Control Shift plus. Control Shift plus. So now these are solid pieces. And I want to do the same thing with the color. Let me bring my color back. We're gonna go red and this pretty purple. Actually, it's kind of more burgundy. Doesn't matter. Okay, so oops, bring these to the top. I've got my snapping turned on, so we'll go ahead and put these in the spot that they need to go in. No. And right about there-ish. And we'll take these, bring them up to the top layer. There we go. Now the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take these two pieces and I'm going to go to Path and Difference. Copy this, undo, paste it, and I'm going to go here and delete these few lines that I don't need. I could have done break apart, but there's so many little pieces that this is just going to be a little easier. Okay. We don't need this piece either. Just delete those nodes. Okay. And then bring her back over here and delete the piece that we don't need. So now these two are going to fit together perfectly. Cute. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do, okay, so path and difference, copy that, undo, snap it back into place. We'll go ahead and move those down. Delete this guy, and boom, there we go. And we're gonna do the same thing with all these other pieces. Path and difference. And here, path, difference. And now we have these two pieces. And I copy them by hitting Shift, click on both of them, and then Control Shift C, copy. Control Z to undo. And just to make life a little easier, I'm going to change those to blue so we know which one to get rid of. Control V to paste. And then we'll move them down and delete the blue. And I'm going to do the same thing for this piece. For this piece, path difference. We're going to save, copy these. Undo, turn these a different color. Somehow it changed to stroke. I'm not mad about it. I don't know how I just did that. I've always wondered how to do that, and now I've just done it and I have no clue how. Okay. Take these pieces, slide them back in, move them down, and delete the pieces that I don't need. And then one more time, we're gonna do the same path difference, copy this, undo, turn it blue, slide that into place, move it down, delete the blue, and bam, we have ourselves a vectored piece. See? Ooh. Now, it's more complicated than that, but wait, there's more. So let's take this little guy out the way, and I'm actually gonna take this piece and copy it just so there's an extra of this one now that it's vectored and everything is where it should be. See? So what I'm gonna do is take Actually, I forgot, I do need a circle. Most of my designs usually start out at about 14 inches when I transfer it from my iPad. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put this circle here, and I definitely need to make it smaller. It might be more like 12-ish. It doesn't matter though. Go ahead and choose a size. Do about 12 and a half. And that looks good. So what I'm gonna do here, let's delete this piece. I'm gonna go ahead and resize all this. Copy it. No, I'm sorry. Just gonna resize all this down to 10.5 inches. Delete this. That looks pretty good. Let's copy and paste this just to have an extra. And make sure these are at 10 and a half, which they are. So now comes the fun part. I'm gonna go ahead and save this just in case so we don't lose anything. And we're gonna go ahead and do the fun part. So let's turn all of our fill colors off, turn our stroke paint on, and we want to make sure that our stroke is all completely the same. I always put mine at 0.2 millimeters, and we're going to start off just with black. That's fine. I always like to do a 2-dimensional and a 3-dimensional. This is going to be our 3-dimensional version of this sign. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this one just because we're already on this. Okay. All right, so first thing I'm going to show you as an example, we need to make this into a single line because right now there's 2 lines and you don't want the laser to double cut this because it's going to end up with char or a potential fire hazard, which would not be very good. So I'm going to go ahead and take one of these borders and go to my nodes. I'm going to take the piece right here and this guy right here that's connecting these two together, and I'm going to go up here and click break path at selected nodes, delete segment between 2 non-endpoint nodes, and now it should be broken apart, and I'm going to go ahead and delete the nodes in between those 2 pieces, and just like that we now have a single line. Sometimes you want to go back and double check to make sure that the nodes are overlapping the other lines. That way your lines will still be connected and cut out successfully. So now I'm going to do what I just did here down here. Normally when I'm doing this, I like to have 2 different colors on my roses or on my flowers. So I'm gonna separate all these pieces, and then I'm gonna make another set that's got like score lines. That way you can decide if you want to interlock it or have it just scored as one solid piece. This is gonna be the optional 3-dimensional, and then this is all gonna be cut out and interlocked back together like a puzzle. So I'm just gonna go in fast mode and you can sit here and watch and enjoy. I'm gonna go ahead and change the color on this one so you can see a little bit better to get an idea of how I can tell which lines need to be removed. See how these are overlapping. I've been doing this for a long time, so I don't usually have a problem with telling the difference between the 2, but just in case to make it easier. So now you see that these are overlapping, but not to where they're going to double line cut. you see when I did that, that broke right there. Now, you don't have to connect these to this line because the laser automatically reads this as a connected line. When I'm finished, I'll show you what I do to make sure that this stays a whole piece and doesn't separate accidentally in the laser workspace. It's very important that you make sure that your colors are all 100% the same. That way when the laser groups your things together, just because clicking this red like here or making this red here, there are two different color reds, and you want to go based on the numbers on your side panel over here. Most of the time, if I don't use black, I have a automatic red that I use where I do 200, or I'll do 200 and 200 or 250 and 250, just so it's a set thing every time I'm doing my colors. So now you can see that everything has been made into single line pieces. So now what I'm going to do is select this whole piece, and I'm going to hit Control K to make a solid piece. So now in the laser, this is going to be seen as one whole cut piece. And then we're going to go ahead and change this to 250. And the same with this, we're going to make these 250. Anytime you want a file to have different steps on a Glowforge, you make them a different color. I'm gonna make these a different color so that you guys have the option if you want to cut or ignore this piece. That way in my laser, those who want to cut out the backers, you can and just add your settings. Or if you don't, you can just ignore them or delete them. But that way this piece is its own settings and these would be their own settings. So now this piece is finished, but what I want to do is I want to do the same thing on this side, but this time I want to make all of these solid pieces with score lines. Now I'm going to show you how to turn this from two pieces into one solid piece with a score line. The first thing we're going to do, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it to the side just to have an extra. I'm going to select both of these and go to Path and Union. Delete any extra nodes that pop up. And now we're going to take one of these pieces from before, go ahead and turn it to a different color so we can see it. And we're going to take this node and this node, break them apart, and then we can go and delete all of these nodes or just go Path and break apart. And from there, get rid of this, and now we have a single line right in the middle. Delete this one. And we're going to turn this to the color that I usually use for score lines, which is 250 and 250. So 250, 0, 250. And there we go. Now we have a score line, an optional score line. So on this piece, two separate single line pieces, and this one solid with a single line for scoring down the middle. And we're going to do the same thing with all of these pieces. So because I want these two pieces to be cut separately and I have a score line here to help with placement like that, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to keep these pieces cutouts. So we're going to go ahead and remove the nodes like before. I'm gonna go ahead and move this backer piece down here, and I'm gonna move these pieces out of the way, because I actually want all of this to be a solid piece and not these pieces. So this will be the 3-dimensional scored, and this will be the 2-dimensional interlocking with optional backers for 3-dimensional. This will be our 3-dimensional with optional score lines. So this will be one solid piece with 2 roses. This is going to be our 2-dimensional interlocking with optional 3D. So more pieces to cut out, one solid piece. So the first thing I'm going to do is select all my pieces. And of course, I'm going to copy and make an extra just to have over here. Select all the pieces. And I'm going to click on Union. And we will have to go back and clean up some of these nodes. So now the next thing we're gonna do is grab this guy, bring this back down, and we're going to change this to a different color. So now you can see the dark lines. This is what we need to get rid of, and these are the lines we need to keep. So now we have another layer on top that will be our map. Okay, add your nodes. Just like here, we're gonna need a node here and here. We need one here and here. And let's go ahead and start breaking those apart. Okay, and then this one up here. This is where it gets tricky. So now we're gonna go path and break apart, and we're going to delete these pieces that we don't need. And we're gonna go ahead and keep on deleting. Let's see, we need this one, we need that one. Get rid of this one here. And then, oops, path and break apart. Get rid of this guy. And let's go back up here. We're just gonna do one flower at a time. Get rid of this big guy up here, because we don't need this one either. Delete these nodes, and boom, just like that, the first flower is almost done. And now we're going to do the same to this guy. Add a node here and here, highlight those, delete, add a node here and here, those apart in a minute. And then this guy right here, and add one here, and I think that's just about it. So we're going to go path, break apart, and delete this guy, this one, and this one. And now we want to go ahead and make sure that all of these are connecting where they need to be connected, because we added nodes kind of randomly. Well, we got something here we need to get rid of. There we go, that's better. Let's fix this. Let's see, what is this? There we go. this guy down until he walks in there. And keep searching. That guy looks good. So now the next thing we're gonna do is take each of these lines, all of our score lines, and this little guy there, and we're gonna go Control K. So now they are all one layered piece, and we're gonna change this to 250, 0, 250. And there you have a solid piece. See? Solid piece with your pink score lines. And then we'll go ahead and change these black lines to cut 250. And there you go. We now have two floral signs. We can go ahead and get rid of this guy. This guy. And just like that, these go layer under here, so you can layer them with those backers, or if you really want to put these tiny pieces back in, you can. And then these, cut this, score these, and pile this pretty guy on top. So this is your single, your single line 3-dimensional, your single line 2-dimensional interlocking with optional backer pieces. And since we already resized them, we know that both of these will fit beautifully on a 10.5-inch round. Now, I'm gonna save this by hitting Control S on my keyboard. The last thing we need to make sure we do is save these in 2 different files. So I'm gonna save one of these as the 3D and one as a 2D. But to make it easier for making mock-ups, I always keep this colored piece and I save this as a mock-up and I put it in my cloud so that I can make the digital images for my listings. But that is how you do a vector for a floral, from drawing on the iPad to in the computer. You know, it's very fast-paced, and hopefully you guys more watch this for enjoyment purposes and less for actually learning, because that was very fast-paced. So now I'm going to go ahead and test these files by opening each of them. Once this comes up in the workspace, I'm going to go ahead and click on medium basswood hardwood, which is what I use for every setting. I usually delete the words because I don't need them, because I know what I'm doing since I made them. I decide on which of the rounds I want to use. Most likely I'm going to go with the shiplap for a shelf sitter, and otherwise I'm going to use the solid one, but we cut our rounds out on our table saw. But just to make sure this is the correct size, sometimes Inkscape doesn't save the correct size no matter how many times I've tried. But I'm going to go ahead and move that circle over the entire design. We're going to go to our tool and we're going to put 10.5 inches. And it really makes not much difference, but at least now we know that this is in fact 10.5 inches. So for these, see how they're single line, you want to be careful not to move them too much. Even though they are solid pieces, sometimes things can happen, you never know. And then we would go ahead, and if we don't need these rounds, you can ignore them, delete them, or whatever it is you need to do. Set these both to cut. This right here to score. I'm not doing my settings right now, but I do prefer to score before I cut anything. And this is what this 3-dimensional piece is gonna look like. And now let's move these out of the way, and we'll do the same with the other. This is the 2-dimensional. I may have changed the names around, so I need to double check that before I finish with these. That would happen. Make sure this is at 10.5. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this because I don't need it. And then for this, you would just have everything set to cut. And there you go. There are your two different signs that we just put together and vectored. So now you see on my screen, I hope. Where is my hand tool? Hold on, I need my hand tool. So now we've got our three-dimensional layered with our scored lines and our interlocking cutouts. And all the settings that you would need are in the PDF, which I'm going to show you how I set my files up so you can see. Now that I'm over on my iPad, I'm going to go ahead and put my latest mock-up back into here. And with this, as I said before, this is mostly just to make it easier for you guys when you're looking for a file on your computer. But also, in case I ever have something like a font, or if you want color ideas. So I'll go ahead and put we're gonna have these two along with my shiplap lines. So now we've got the name of the file up there. And we're gonna export this and put this back into the file and zip it up, and we'll be ready to go. Now that I have the image back in my folder, you can see exactly which file this is without really having to click on it. We've got our instructions, our image for color ideas and things like that, the licensing terms and agreements, and our 2D and 3D floral designs for your laser. We are going to take our folder, right click, select add to archive, check zip, hit OK, and we are finished. I hope you guys enjoyed this in-depth behind the scenes video of how I create my files. If you have any questions, comment below, or you can post in the VIB group and just let me know what you guys think. All right, well, thank you for watching. Bye guys.